Welcome back. Today we look at the Holy of Holies and its meaning, its history, as well as why it is important today. And for us to be able to understand the sacredness of this place, the Holy of Holies, we definitely have to look back at the ancient Israelites. And obviously, this is the time when God commanded Moses to deliver the children of Israel out of Egypt. So we know of their journey when they were helped or miraculously crossed through the Red Sea and eventually traveling through the wilderness. Now they are promised a land, a promised land, but now obviously there are challenges along the way. But now the Lord wants to make them holy before they can enter into this promised land, and to make them holy, He commands them to create a holy place. And this is where we get now to learn about the tabernacle. But I want to read in Exodus because it sort of gives us the description of the structure itself. You know, some of the specs, if you go into Exodus 25, 26, 27 through 30, 35, you get to realize that the Lord was intentional about the construction of the tabernacle, what was to be used, how it was to be constructed, the size and the shape. But I want to just look at the three focus in terms of the division, how it was divided, this tabernacle. And to help me do that, I'm going to read in Exodus chapter 26 from verse 33 and 34. And then this is what it says. And thou shalt hang up the veil under the taches, that thou mayest bring in thither within the veil the ark of the testimony. And the veil shall divide unto you between the holy place and the most holy. And thou shalt put the mercy seat upon the ark of the testimony in the most holy place. Now, this is a clear direction and description of obviously giving us an idea of how this tabernacle was. We know that there was an outer courtyard, so obviously surrounding the tabernacle itself, sort of like a fence, around this tabernacle. And then we are told in verse 33 that there has to be a veil between the holy place and the holy of holy places, or the most holy place. And so we've got this three division, which is the outer courtyard, but then we have the holy place. That's where there was a place where they would put their showbread and also to burn incense, which is in the holy place. But now there's a veil, and now they say that with or beyond the veil there was the ark of the testimony, or the ark of the covenant. And that is where we call it the Holy of Holies, or the most holy place. And so today, the Latter-day Saint Church, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, has got about 384 temples, whether in operation, under construction, announced, or even renovation phases. And we believe, as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that these are sacred and holy places, just like the tabernacle was for the Israelites. As I said, the Lord wanted the Israelites to become holy, and so He wanted them to obviously go into a holy place that will help them to become a holy people. And so Latter-day Saints have got temples all around the world, temples which obviously have to be holy in order to enter those sacred and holy places. And within these temples, we have what is called or known as the Holy of Holies. If you read further, you get to understand about this Holy of Holies. And I'm going to turn again into Leviticus, because we are told here that this is not a place that would just occasionally be entered into. It was the most sacred place, and this comes after Aaron, the brother of Moses, loses two of his sons. And the Lord now commands Moses, and He says in chapter 16 of Leviticus, chapter 1 and 2, verse 1 and 2, and it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they offered before the Lord and died. And the Lord said unto Moses, speak unto Aaron thy brother, that he come not at all times into the holy place within the veil before the mercy seat, which is upon the ark, that he die not. For I will appear in the cloud upon the mercy seat. So obviously the Lord now commanding Moses to make it known, or inform Aaron that he shouldn't just come there at any given time. So when you go into Hebrews, it tells you that the Holy of Holies, or this most holy place, was entered into by a high priest, and he did that once. So if this Holy of Holies is only permissible, or a person is only permitted to enter there once a year, it's sort of like an indication of the importance of this place and how sacred it is, and the meaning behind it, that God would say a person of the caliber of a high priest and that he should only enter once a year. So definitely making it, a clear indication that this is not a place to be trifled with or to be played around, But on the 9th of May, 2026, Dallin H. Oaks, who is the prophet and president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, shocks us. I say us because I saw social media was abuzz with confusion, excitement. So it was a bittersweet moment for some that I managed to go through. But what he does is that he posts the first color photograph of the inside of the Holy of Holies of the Salt Lake Temple. And so people were shocked. Some people were asking themselves, is this the real photo of the Holy of Holies? Is it a mistake? Because some didn't see it from the handle of Dallin H. Oaks, the prophet. They saw it from the church's website. And when you get to those sites, you see it from the social media of Dallin H. Oaks, and then you get an indication or reaffirmation from the church's website, and you realize that this is real. The church is not messing around. They are really posting this picture of the Holy of Holies. And like I said, it was the first ever color picture. And just an indication of or just a summary of what the Holy of Holies means to members of the Church of Jesus Christ. The Holy of Holies is a sacred place, a place where the president of the church goes into, to seek for revelation. And there has been stories where the prophets of the church or presidents of the church will go in to even seek for visitation from heavenly messengers, to seek guidance on how to run the affairs of the church. And so it's a sacred place. Like I said, it's a very, meaningful place for members of the church. And one could understand why some were taken aback and some were shocked about seeing this image on the socials. Some people have had this in mind, that this Holy of Holies is a secret place where people shouldn't know about, or not even let alone seeing it on social media. And so some people were questioning whether it was the right decision to have this picture on socials and out there in the public. But something happened in 1911, and we are told of a story of charlatans who were led by a gentleman called Max Florence, together with Gisbert Bolak. So they were busy with the renovations in the Salt Lake City Temple, and these individuals decided to sneak in, into the Salt Lake Temple. And while sneaking in, they decided to take the photos of the interior of the Salt Lake Temple. But with that, they also took the photograph of the Holy of Holies. And so they took this picture that they've taken of the Holy of Holies to the church. So obviously the church at that time was led by Joseph F. Smith, and as the prophet and president of the Church of Jesus Christ, he gets this news that there are gentlemen who are blackmailing the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they want to sell this photograph of the Holy of Holies, this sacred place, and that has so much meaning for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now they want to sell this photograph to the church and its leaders for $100,000 US. Obviously the church refused, to pay for that photo. But now James E. Talmage comes into the picture, and at this time he's not yet an apostle, but he goes to the leaders of the church with some suggestion to say, how about we take photos of the interior of the temple and publish it to the world, to the public, because those charlatans, they took a low quality picture anyway of the interior of the Holy of Holies and some other photos of the temple. And so now James E. Talmage comes with this brilliant idea, sort of to counter, these blackmailers who came in the form of trying to get some money from the church. And he then suggests that we take authorized pictures of the interior of the temples as well as the Holy of Holies. And so the church agrees. And so in 1912, they commissioned a book that James E. Talmage published, which is called The House of the Lord. And in that book, that's the first ever photograph of the Holy of Holies. And obviously it's in black and white. So when you look at both these pictures, you realize that in the center of the Holy of Holies, there's a stained glass depicting the first vision. Now, the first vision for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a sacred and important event because it starts everything. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, its members believe that in 1820, a young boy by the name of Joseph Smith, who was confused by the many different sectors that were there at that time, after having read in James chapter 1, verse 5, which says that if anyone is confused, he must ask God, decided to go to a grove of trees in the morning. And he decided to kneel down and take his confusion to God and to ask God, basically asking of all the churches that were there at the time, which was correct. And he explains that as he was kneeling down, he saw a pillar of light, above the brightness of the sun, which descended gradually until it fell upon him. And when the light rested upon him, according to Joseph Smith, he says he saw two personages whose brightness and glory defied all description, standing above him in the air. And Joseph Smith says one of them spake unto him, calling him by name, Joseph, pointing to the other, saying, this is my beloved son, hear him. So as members of the Church of Jesus Christ, that is the first vision where Joseph Smith, we believe, saw God the Father and his son, Jesus Christ. So in that Holy of Holies, in the center, it is that stained glass depicting that first vision where you see two images and obviously Joseph Smith kneeling, so as to commune with these two heavenly beings. So you see that in the painting there, or in the stained glass, and that is a symbol. To have that stained glass depicting the first vision is a symbol that the president of the church, whenever he goes into the Holy of Holies, gets to communicate with God on behalf of the church, on behalf of the world. And that is how sacred that Holy of Holies is. But I want to read something that Elder Boyd K. Packer wrote in his book, and he wrote this in 1980, and he talks about the Holy of Holies and what it means. And the book that he wrote or published is titled The Holy Temple. And there's a paragraph there that I just took from that book, and it says, obviously talking about the Holy of Holies. It says, hidden away in the central part of the temple is the Holy of Holies, where the president of the church may retire when burdened down with heavy decisions to seek an interview with him whose church it is. The prophet holds the keys, the spiritual keys, and the very literal key, this one door in that sacred edifice. And so he says literal keys. So he talks about spiritual keys, but also literal keys to this one door that the prophet holds. And that should tell you that the sacredness of the nature of that space that the Holy of Holies is, that a president is the only person with the keys to that sacred place. And so some people have asked, do other temples have the Holy of Holies? And so we know from church history that the Mentai Temple as well as the Logan Temple used to have the Holy of Holies, but unfortunately over the years or over time they were deemed unnecessary, and so those Holy of Holies then were discontinued or removed, or in fact they were then turned or converted into the sealing rooms. So those small rooms were then made into smaller sealing rooms. And so in all the temples around the world, that I've mentioned, 384 of them, whether operational or under construction or announced or renovated or being renovated, have sealing rooms. And in the sealing rooms, there's a side door. And we are told that when you go into that side door, there's a little room there that can be used as a Holy of Holies, as and when the president of the church needs to use it. And so that is interesting to know. Yeah, so I'm just grateful for this knowledge and the temples that we have, their sacredness. Many people have been through almost every corner of the Salt Lake City temple, but none has, or very few, a handful, have actually been inside the Holy of Holies. I know maybe some have probably tried, to sneak through the cracked corners of the doors, or even tried to look through the keyhole there, to see if they can just get a peek of what is inside there. But unfortunately, not everyone can go into the Holy of Holies. Most of us will probably never even get a chance to go in there. You might be feeling uncomfortable with seeing pictures in public, whether on Twitter, Facebook, or wherever, on WhatsApp statuses, and you might feel this is too sacred for me to see. I don't want to be seeing such things. These things should be just kept to us as members of the church. But the church is moving in a different direction. By the way, next year, the Salt Lake City Temple will be having an open house. The public, those who are not members of the church, even those who are members of the church, will be invited to tour the temple. Remember, right now it is not dedicated. So it is just a building, just as the Holy of Holies is just a room now because it is not dedicated. So after it has been dedicated, obviously then things change, and the room then becomes something that not just anyone can go in. But do you think the public will get to go inside the Holy of Holies during the open house of the temple? I don't know. It will be interesting to know. Maybe someone can drop a comment and say yes, people do get to see the Holy of Holies. I don't know, but I would love to really know if during the open house of the temple the public is allowed to go into the Holy of Holies. Do they actually say, when they just give people an introduction of the rooms of the temple, to say this is the Holy of Holies, or they just take them through the tour? I don't know, but like I said, it will be interesting to see. And just recently, the church opened the visitor center at the Salt Lake Temple, and what they unveiled to us as members of the church, as well as the public, and the public was there, is sort of like a replica of exactly the temple rooms. So you've got your baptismal fonts, you've got your sealing rooms, you've got your ordinance rooms. Just as the temple layout is, they have actually created that for the public. So anyone can go to the visitor center in Salt Lake City and want to see how does a temple baptismal font room look like. They will be able to go there and get an idea, an indication of how a baptismal font room looks like. So the church is going or moving away from that notion that the church is trying to keep things secret, because this is what gets the attention of detractors of the church. They try to publish these pictures of sacred things that we hold dear, and they then try to attack or belittle the church using these pictures that they take unauthorized. So I agree with what the church is doing, trying to make this thing open so that we give people minimum, or even not at all, ammunition to attack the church. Will this stop attacks? No. I think people, like I said, they're always looking for something negative about the church. They will always complain. I'm sure there are people already who look at this picture of the Holy of Holies. They will see the stained glass of the prophet Joseph Smith kneeling. They will see something wrong with that. They will belittle or even try and mock us for saying that Joseph Smith saw God the Father and Jesus Christ. But it doesn't matter. We know what we know. We believe what we believe. We have felt what we have felt, and ours is just to respect people, whatever religion or dominion or sector they belong to. We just have to respect what they believe, and hopefully one day they will respect what we believe. But the question I have for you is, do you know, or have you asked yourself, why now? After over 100 years, why would the church publish this photograph of the Holy of Holies? If you know, let me know. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you for watching. While appear to heavenly beings, God the Father and the Son, Joseph, this is my beloved. Hear him, oh, how sweet the word. Joseph's humble prayer was answered, and he listened to the Lord. Oh, what rapture filled his bosom, for he saw the living God. Oh, what rapture filled his bosom, for he saw the